Am I the a-hole for leaving my sister and her husband on the side of the road? I come from a very smex-positive household. My parents taught my sister and I about smex, sexuality, and their non-vanilla lifestyle from a young age. They were very affectionate and touchy with each other in public and didn't, and still don't, seem to care about others' opinions. They lived a very non-conventional lifestyle and weren't afraid to flaunt it. On one hand, my parents never treated intimacy as a shameful subject. Therefore, I received a very comprehensive, inclusive form of smex education. On the other hand, I think I was introduced to many topics at a very young age. In many ways, my sister, Angie, turned out like my parents. She proclaims that she's smex positive and has no qualms about openly discussing smex in great detail at every opportunity. She believes that if a person is uncomfortable, they must be a conservative virgin/prude who clearly hates all forms of self-expression. Her words. My wife, Zara, isn't a huge fan of public displays of affection. Other than hand-holding or occasional kisses on the cheek, she isn't comfortable with doing much in public. We're also not the type of people to discuss our intimate life with people, much less family. Angie doesn't like Zara. She believes that Zara is too conservative or prudish for our family. She often makes fun of Zara for looking embarrassed when she's discussing, in excruciating detail, about smex. Zara barely says anything, but Angie still manages to make fun of her. Unsurprisingly, I don't speak to Angie much. Recently, Zara's brother passed away. Angie's husband, Bill, knew his partner and wanted to pass on his condolences. Zara, Angie, Bill, and I all wanted to attend his wake. Instead of taking separate cars, Angie suggested that we all go together. Well, to be honest, I was not a huge fan of this idea. It was a 2-hour drive from where we lived to our destination. Also, we were planning on leaving very early so that we could help set up, and were planning to leave late. We still managed to do it. So at first, everything was alright. Understandably, no one was speaking in the car, and it was very quiet in there. Most people were keeping to themselves or sleeping. But midway through the drive, Angie and Bill start making out in the backseat of our car. Now, when I say making out, I mean full-on making out. They were pushing up against the car door and making all sorts of noises. Zara and I were extremely uncomfortable. I pulled over and started yelling at Angie. I told them that I was disgusted by their behavior and that they were acting like horny little teenagers. Angie said that they were grieving? What?
Mom, you don't understand. I'm grieving.
I yelled at them to get out of my car. At first, they were protesting, but I was so angry and so tired of them already. I told them to find their way home by themselves. My parents think that I went too far with them and that Zara needs to loosen up in order to be part of this family. Obviously, Angie and Bill are extremely ticked off. Now, edit. When I initially pulled over, I pulled over into a small petrol station that had a little cafe. Saying side of the road was a poor choice of words, and I apologize for all the confusion. So okay, fair enough then. Yes, side of the road would be a bit of a different issue, especially depending on the climate they were stuck in and how far away from a society they were. But okay, they were clearly dropped off somewhere where they had access to communications of sorts. Still, my immediate thoughts on this are, well, for one, absolutely valid to say, hey, get the frick out. But I also think in the circumstances of them literally being left on their own in the middle of nowhere, could have at least left them with a warning of sorts. But then you also have to argue, what mature adult with a conscious brain could fail to comprehend the idea that, hey, maybe I shouldn't grind up against my partner in front of my sibling? I know there's that Netflix series being made about, like, siblings trying to date other people in front of each other. What? Ew! No! Let's keep Alabama as a state, not a country! In the comments we have an everyone sucks here. Your sister and her husband are the a-holes for being extremely inappropriate and disrespectful of the other's wishes. Smex positive does not mean ignoring the consent or non-consent of the people around you. But you were also the a-hole because you knew what your sister was like, you know she doesn't like your wife, you know the relationship they have, and you even said that you thought it was a bad idea. And then instead of following your better judgment, you trapped your wife in a car with someone who doesn't like her and goes out of her way to make your wife uncomfortable for 2 hours. And quite a few people have this same sentiment, just, yeah, you're both in the wrong in this situation. But the most topped comment does go to Natar, basically bringing up the whole idea again of the idea of consent, communication, and being free to make informed choices And yes, nothing about what your sister is doing is actually Smex positive. It's closer to more like Smex arrogance. You're comfortable getting it on when you want, where you want. Good on you! But it doesn't make me a prude if I don't want to see you butt naked. Honestly, I wonder if this is her actually being someone who's Smex positive versus someone trying to normalize what she experienced as a child witnessing her parents do a lot in front of her. And thinking, yeah, no, this is normal, guys. See, I can do it in front of you because my parents did it in front of me all the time. And, you know, it's not weird. I'm not uncomfortable by it secretly. It's normal. See, I'm going to make it comfortable for me by making it comfortable for you. Again, getting a bit armchair psychologist there, but it's pretty common when these kind of people try to shove something down your throat. It's because they're trying to justify it to themselves even more. On to another story where people think they can still dictate others. Am I the a-hole for not wanting my husband to walk his sister down the aisle? My husband, Mike, 37, is the eldest in his family. He's pretty close with his sister Beth, who's 28, and they spend almost all week together. Beth had issues with her father growing up. She went no contact with him after he took her first car and damaged it. She only remained in contact with Mike since everybody else judged her for going no contact. Well, she's getting married to her fiancé of 3 years. From what I understand, she and her dad are slowly getting reconciled, but she made it clear she wants him to take no part in the wedding. She asked Mike if he could walk her down the aisle, and he agreed. Well, I have to say that I was taken aback, and it felt a bit odd for me because, well, her dad is alive. They're on speaking terms again. He's gonna be there at the wedding, so the logical thing is to have him walk her down the aisle. This role isn't for her older brother, but her father. And not to mention how father-in-law will feel about it. I brought this up with Beth, and she had an attitude and implied that I was just saying this and objecting because of how I feel about the situation, not how our traditions should be practiced. Well, we got into an argument and I went home. Well, Mike thinks I'm being unreasonable and possibly causing him to miss something so sentimental, and that if anything, he feels honored to be asked to do this for her, and said that I should stop worrying about what others might say. Now we're having this conflict, the three of us, and cannot seem to reach a situation. Now look, this is a bit of an open shot case, so I'm just gonna go to the top comment here. You're the a-hole. There was no conflict except for your unwanted opinion. Beth wants Mike to walk her down the aisle. Mike wants to walk Beth down the aisle. Mike's wife thinks he shouldn't, sticks her nose into his business, insists upon it, objects to it, creates a conflict because of her own opinions about years-long issues she hasn't been around for, and then posts. OP, during your entire typing and proofing of this post, did you not see that you've butted into someone else's affairs? Was there no glimmer of Beth should be able to choose whoever she wants, or Mike and Beth know the situation best? I'm more concerned that this isn't the first time you've done this, argued a point rather than listened to the other side, and if I were you, I'd apologize and offer your non-judgmental support. If I were Mike, I'd be second-guessing my marriage. And I agree with this. I'm thinking OP doesn't like how close her husband and his sister are and is expressing it through this. But hey, to be fair, maybe she knows some family history that we all don't know ourselves. I highly doubt it though, but it's fun to think for the sake of tea. On to another trivial story. Am I the a-hole for telling my girlfriend she's selfish for crying to me after my brother's funeral? So I'm a 20 male, my girlfriend, who's 22, always complains and literally cries sometimes about her job, which hasn't been a problem until recently. My brother, who I was extremely close to, passed away unexpectedly about 2 weeks ago. I've barely been holding it together and have been a complete mess. So, about a week ago, he had his funeral and my girlfriend can't make it because her boss won't let her take the day off of work, which is totally fine, and I understand. She meets up with me after work, like an hour after the funeral, and starts crying almost immediately. She starts venting to me about how much she hates her boss and her schedule, and how bad of a day she had at work. Meanwhile, my whole world feels like it's completely falling apart, and a piece of my heart was ripped out of my chest. After she's done rambling about work, I asked her, why does everything have to be about you? I permanently lost one of my closest people in my life, and you're so selfish that you can't even spare me one day of your trivial problems? She stops crying, gets mad, and drives home and texts me, you're an a-hole. So, Reddit, am I the a-hole calling my girlfriend selfish for crying after my brother's funeral? Now, he makes a questionable edit here saying, I definitely won't be able to respond to everyone who was only expecting a couple replies. A common question is if this is a recurring behavior, which it is, and extends beyond her work, but it doesn't really bother me on the day-to-day basis. I don't think her problems are actually trivial. I just felt like it was a total lack of awareness of the relativity of our two situations. So he acknowledges that some of the things she's crying and upset upset about aren't just, someone who's mentally or emotionally exhausted. It's genuine things that are causing distress for her life. Which I hope he conveys to her and lets her know that, because I no doubt when someone tells you that they think your issues that you've been crying about all this time are suddenly trivial to them, yeah, you're gonna think that, oh, right, they've just been lying to me all this time about saying it's okay for me to be open to them. But this comment chain I do like for how insightful it is. So it starts with the top comment saying, Natar, the way you say she stopped crying makes me picture it like a total switch. If she went straight from crying upset about her day to mad at you, that's, unnerving. With another person supporting this theory that, oh, she sounds like a toxic narcissistic type. Ugh. Getting into a bit of armchair psychology gameplay. All the constant crying she's doing doesn't like she doesn't actually care about trying to fix her situation. She's just wanting to make drama and get your attention. But Hikili there, giving them the upvote, they deserve it here. Okay, not every bit of selfish or unkind behavior is toxic narcissism. Some people overdo complaining and disclosure when they finally have someone in their life who listens, and it feels good to be venting and be heard. She was inconsiderate. She had poor timing. She was selfish. There are many valid criticisms of her behavior, but casually throwing around severe personality descriptors is pretty toxic on its own. I think that's a very valid thing to consider here. I mean, it's something guys do all the time when we finally meet someone who has some genuine interest into what we have or like or do. We have a tendency to speak to them about it as if they've never known about it themselves, even though they clearly do. It's a thing that crosses the line between excitedly discussing about something versus downright mansplaining to someone. And yeah, sometimes when you're just really passionate about what you're talking about, it comes across as arrogant and rather rude. And I imagine this is the same thing for the girl here, where she's finally with someone who is a good listener, is a good supporter. She can finally be passionate about how she feels about things in her life. Of course, I'm not saying mansplaining is the exact same situation as someone needing to vent out their emotional turmoil, but I do think they're similar in that idea where it's a state of emotion that causes you to not really be self-aware of how exactly you're coming across when you keep doing it. Though some still want to argue that, well, because she stopped crying, left him, then texted him later after she thought about it and calling him the a-hole, yeah, she was clearly still being a toxic person because she clearly hadn't taken a moment to be self-aware. But then as another comment points out, they're also only in their early 20s. Now, from my experience in the early 20s and people I know in the early 20s, yeah. Hell, even in my age range of the late 20s, self-awareness is still a developing thing for a lot of people. And let's just be reminded, she was told that her issues were trivial to him. Can't really blame her for thinking he's an a-hole for that. But either way, let me know what you think down below. Do you think he's valid to have snapped at her like this, or do you think that they're both a-holes in the way they dealt with it all, or maybe neither of them are? Give me your thoughts down below. If we want toxic people, let's go to this story. You'll love this one. My husband confessed to having sex with his female coworker after she dared him to. From r/true off my chest, he, 36, came forward and confessed to me about it 2 days ago. He said that it happened 4 months ago. His new female coworker, 27, was harassing him at work and being all flirty and overly chatty with him. He said he tried so hard to draw the line with her, put an end to her harassing texts and comments, but then he said she cornered him and dared him to have it on with her, and then kept negging him, saying he couldn't handle her if he tried. He said he didn't know how and why he acted the way he did, but said that she pushed a button in him and he let her get in his head. He said that very same day, I know which day it was, he found himself in her place, and one thing led to another, and it just happened. He swore he had no control over what he did, and that he in that moment felt like he wasn't himself, and now he's deep in guilt. He admitted going to therapy for the past 2 months to try to overcome this, but he said he can't do that without coming clean about what he did. In the middle of all my shock and disappointment, he's begging me to help him rebuild my trust in him and give him a chance. He also offered to quit his job if that's what I want, but I don't know. I did not give an answer. I'm still in shock, I guess. I don't know how to handle this. Although I haven't seen him since the confession, he hasn't stopped trying to speak to me. Is HR like a taboo subject at his workplace or something? Because, my man, this could have been solved so easily with a visit to HR, but no. That's because this man clearly actually wanted this to happen, and what he was doing was playing that little game of, no, I'm not interested, but I'm not going to say no, I'm just going to say not interested, as I stand still and wait for you to come on to me. That makes cheating okay, because I didn't do anything. I wasn't pounding her, sweetie, we were just soaking, it's fine, because I wasn't actually doing any of the movement, therefore not cheating. Haha! Loophole! Top comment says, you got me at, he found himself at her place. It's like he has no individual agency and blames the woman. And there's a great song about this kind of excuse, which looks like he has the exact same face too. It's what worse too is that like misogynists will have this exact sort of story about a woman doing this as like an excuse as to why women can't be trusted. Oh, you just lost all inhibition, you couldn't control yourself, oh. Get over yourself, dude. You're not 5. You have a brain. You can use it.
I mean, she triple dog dared me, honey. What was I supposed to do? Say no?
Yeah, he cheated on you because she dared him?
I dare you to send me $1,000.
Ah, well frick! You just pushed a button in me and got in my head. I will be sending $1,000 momentarily. Oh yeah, she really gave you no choice. Oh, just wait till the co-owner of my joint bank account hears about this. Anyway, let's move on to a story that's honestly probably even more screwed up. I feel so sorry for the OP here. I can only imagine the just psychological frustration he must be going through with this title. I know that this is going to sound absolutely freaking insane, but I can't really talk about it with anyone in my real life, and I need to say it somewhere because I'm losing my mind over here. I feel like I'm living in a terrible simulation or something. I hope I'm living in a bad simulation. I introduced my girlfriend to my parents last weekend. We've only been dating officially a month, but things were going really well. I had met her parents, she wanted to meet mine. I'm in Canada, and it's Thanksgiving this weekend. My girlfriend wasn't going to be able to see them then, so we did everything a weekend early so they had a chance to meet her. I thought it all went great. They seemed to get along with her. She came off a bit nervous, but I figured that was just because she was meeting my parents for the first time. She wasn't. After we got back to my apartment, though, we sat down in my bedroom. I have roommates, it's the most private place to talk, because she said she had something that she needed to tell me, and it couldn't wait. She just came right out and said it. Toward the end of last school year, my girlfriend and one of her friends had smex with my parents. Yeah, apparently her friend matched with my mom on Tinder and was invited to have smex with her and my dad. She wanted to go, because it was a fantasy she had, but was too nervous to go alone. My girlfriend went along because she was single and it sounded fun too. She says it only happened once, but we ended up breaking up that night. By the next morning, I had convinced myself that she had the wrong couple, so I called my mother up to talk to her about it. She ended up confirming everything and apologizing to me about it. My parents are swingers. I've known that for a long time, but I had no idea they were going after people the same age as me. So, yeah, now I'm completely disgusted and not visiting my parents at least for this Thanksgiving. It's not their fault, I really know it isn't, but I can't be around them right now. Also, to clarify, we're both 19 now, so 18 last year. This isn't an abuse story, just a fricked up one. Other thoughts in the comments. I feel like once you have a kid, especially one just out of high school, you should feel really weird fricking someone the same age as your kid. Opie says, yeah, I feel the same way. Yeah, shouldn't you feel even weirder when you frick someone the same age as your kid when they haven't finished high school yet? Yeah, I'm not even 40 and I've noticed for years that I've made the switch from, wow, that college girl looks hot, to, wow, I hope that college girl has her finances figured out because I made a lot of mistakes at that age and things are even worse now. How someone keeps seeing people who are comparatively children as smexual is mystifying to me. The fact that the girls in question, while legally adults, were still in school makes this even worse. Yeah, I know 18 is the legal age, but I'm sorry. Yeah, okay, yes, in some places it's actually 16, etc. But still, it's just... that number's just there as like the bare minimum. Like if something went wrong between two people at the age of 16 or 18, you know, it's like, okay, well, they seem mature enough for us to not have to consider this as some sort of, you know, child smex thing. That doesn't mean we should, like, be pursuing them as grown adults ourselves in our late 20s to 30s, even 40s. I don't know, man. Like, you have to come across as extremely mature and well-rounded in your life for me to consider anyone under the age of 25 5 as, like, worthwhile. Now, that said, I'm kind of considering more about relationships. For them, this was just a hookup. But I don't know, like, come on, 18? Personally, when I'm playing video games, I prefer playing with someone who's, you know, got some combat experience in the game. I never understand that about, like, alpha chads out there who want that girl who's basically a virgin or has no experience, or it just never makes sense to me. On the other hand, I can understand the idea that there is some sense of fulfillment, hell, even power, hooking up with someone where you get to show them the ropes. So I guess that's understandable, but that of course is crossing a very thin line between being a respectful guide in this whole experience versus someone who clearly just enjoys the power dynamic. But that said, do you think these parents might be worse? Still on Off My Chest, I came out to my parents and it caused their marriage to break down. I caused my parents to divorce because I came out as gay. My dad and mum never showed any signs of being homophobic, but since I was closer to my dad, I came out to him first. He was super supportive. I came out to my mum, and she froze and told me she doesn't know how to feel about it and to give her time. We respected that. 24 hours later, she said, "No, you can't be gay. I want grandchildren," she said in tears. My father got angry and said, "Seriously? Our son had the courage to come out to you and you made it about yourself? What the frick?" Mum's name. Ever since that day, they have been fighting for the past 2 years, and they got divorced. My father won full custody, shocker, and now we moved to Michigan. I feel awful. I ruined their relationship with my big mouth. If I never came out of the closet, none of this would happen. I hate myself. I just want my dad and mum to be back together. I'm such a horrible son. I'm ashamed of myself. I wish time machines exist so I can go back in time and tell 16-year-old self not to come out and stay in the closet forever. Yeah, so personally, I think though sleeping with your girlfriend in the past is a terrible thing, at least your parents are supportive of you and not A-grade coons like this woman is. It's a real damn shame that they feel like this. I'm sorry they feel like this. I wish they didn't have to feel like this. No doubt the mother's drilled into his head as he's been growing up that the idea of being gay is something to be ashamed of and a failure of a man. Which it isn't. Let's clarify that. It is not. Your masculinity and, well, just what it means to be a man isn't defined by how well you can leave someone else to create babies for you in 9 months' time. Hey, look at this way. Your dad divorced her because he clearly didn't like the way she treated his children. Who knows what she said when you weren't around to listen? You know, she probably would have abused you for a really long time with her phobia, and it would have probably escalated. I think your dad divorced her to protect you and your mental health. It's not your fault. Your dad did what he thought was best for the family and then moved you guys away for a reason. He's really brave. Yeah, your parents didn't divorce because of you. They divorced because your mum thinks grandbabies are more important than your happiness. Yeah, God, I hate those kind of women out there that think just because they had a child, they're entitled to that child being forced into, or pressured by you into having kids of their own, just so you get to play the cool granny who gets to play with them every now and again, but then, you know, push them off to the actual mother when you're done with them. Like, if you want that privilege, work as an activities host at some resort or on a cruise ship for kids and families. Otherwise, don't shove your children into being your surrogate. That's my thoughts, though. And I think with it said, we'll end today's video there. As always, thank you so much for watching. A thank you to the people who post the stories in today's video. Some of them are pretty tragic, and I hope they find some comfort in them by, you know, using the online space to vent it all out. But otherwise, you yourself be good as well. Love your face. Thank you so much for watching the video. Be sure to like and subscribe. Drink water. It's good for you. And bye-bye.